Hey everybody, this is Gregory from Dapp University. So today I have another guest on the channel. I'm going to be talking with Sid from Toshi Browser and Coinbase about how they're building on top of Ethereum over at Toshi Browser. And I had a great chat with Sid today, but I had a few technical difficulties with my webcam. And I actually lost that feed, but I still have my audio. So the spotlight's going to be all on Sid today. So before we jump into the interview, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so that you can see more videos about how you can build decentralized applications on the Ethereum blockchain. And you can see more videos like this where I interview real people who are building real live projects on top of Ethereum. So let's go ahead and jump into the interview portion where Sid's going to give us his elevator pitch for Toshi.
Toshi is Coinbase's mobile crypto wallet and a browser for the Ethereum network. So you can both store your crypto, so whether it's Ethereum or your tokens or collectibles, as well as actually browse, any dApp that's out there. And we're seeing a world where developers and entrepreneurs are building all kinds of decentralized applications or dApps. And we want to be the user portal for a more mainstream audience to access this decentralized web. And so that's what Toshi is meant to do. And, in that sense, Toshi's mission is really closely aligned with that of Coinbase's overall mission, which is to create an open financial system for the world. And, that's why we built this. We believe that, in the next few years, and even by the end of 2018, we're going to see a whole spectrum of financial services available to users via these dApps. And so we want to build that critical piece of infrastructure that lets people access dApps. So yeah, that's Toshi in a nutshell.
Very cool. So if we wanted to, download, find, use Toshi, where can we do that?
Sure. So Toshi is a mobile client. It's available in the iOS and Android app stores. So you can just go there, search for Toshi, and download it.
Nice. So you talked about, Toshi being sort of this gateway for people to access this world of financial services. Do you want to maybe break that down a little bit? Like what particular services are people going to be able to access, and what's the friction that people are trying to overcome that they can't quite overcome yet, and how does Toshi help with that?
Sure. I would say that unlike, say, a typical Coinbase product, which is the USP of that product is the service it delivers. In our case, we're actually a platform. And what we're hoping is that other developers will build really interesting, and we're already seeing this, they're building really interesting use cases, right? And so, for example, there's the ability to now borrow on the blockchain. So you could go and access credit, which you couldn't have done. Maybe, for some people, they couldn't get credit in there from their local bank for whatever reason, but they can go to the blockchain and get credit. Or they could go and do micro jobs, and maybe where they live somewhere in the world, there isn't a good local economy and they can't get employed, but they can open a dApp and perform some small service. It could be, there's a bunch of microjobs platforms that are coming out there. So whether it's programming or some kind of verification or providing some local intelligence, they can now earn money in crypto. And so there's actually a whole, I think, a very wide gamut of applications that's being built. And we want to serve as the gateway for that. And this spans everything from, having a credit on the blockchain to being able to borrow, to being able to invest, and to being able to even do things like play, right? If you look specifically at the gaming sector, you can work very hard inside of a game, and then you win armor, or you win credentials or whatever you want to call it, but you can't really take that outside the game. And so even within the gaming sector, for example, there's an application where you can have these collectibles that are generated as a reward for you doing something inside a game, and you can actually take that into another game, or you can take that to a marketplace outside and sell it. And so these are, there's a whole wide range of applications that people are building, and we want to be the gateway for that.
Right. So that's very cool. So one thing that I notice a lot when people are trying to use, the blockchain and trying to use Ethereum dApps is really just the barrier of entry from a knowledge perspective, just as a casual user, not as a developer, someone who just wants to, they might see a dApp. So if they see a dApp, they want to use it, but don't have prior knowledge.
So I think, what we're trying to do what we first do is
how does Toshi
we act as a filter. So we try and curate what we think are the best dApps that are out there. And so we have around 30 dApps. There's, if you look at the entire universe, if you go to state of the dApps, there's probably 1,200 or 1,300 dApps out there. But we've curated what we think are the good experiences, right? So that's the first step, is just making sure that people have a good first experience. And then what we do is, if you open Toshi, you'll see we curate them. We give them we categorize them under different categories. So we have exchanges, and then you have marketplaces, and then you have games, then you have social media. So people already get a sense of, okay, what am I going to do when I open this? We give them a description. So once again, it's a quick description of what this dApp does. And then I think that hopefully gets people to a point where when they open the dApp, they know what to expect. Now, taking a step back, what we can do even better is, and what we're working on now, is the onboarding process like. When you first get into crypto, you've got to be taught about managing your private key and understanding how important that is. You've got to understand what a dApp even is. You've got to understand why you even need a wallet. Like, what makes a Web3 browser a Web3 browser is the fact that it's mostly a regular browser, but you've also added a wallet. So what does it mean to have a wallet, and why do you have one? And so we're trying to focus now also on that onboarding journey to say that if you are a new user and you come into Toshi, what do we need to teach you to enable you to navigate this new environment? And so that's something that's an active focus of mine and for the team right now.
Nice. That's a great explanation. In Toshi, you said it's kind of does a few different things. So can you maybe break down what are the main kind of functionalities or features of Toshi besides just, dApp curation? Like, it manages a wallet. It also does XYZ.
Sure. So, the heart of Toshi is the wallet, right? And in that wallet, you can store not just your Ethereum, but also ERC20 tokens, which, we increasingly see more and more dApps use. So we wanted to support that, as well as collectibles. So you can also, if you buy a CryptoKitty, for example, you'll see it show up in there. And then as a logical extension of that, I have a wallet. What can I do with it? I can go to a dApp. So we have a browser, right, where we first curate the dApps, but you can also go to any dApp that you want. And you can engage with that dApp, and that dApp can send you a transaction which you sign from your wallet. And then the third pillar that we have is actually a social network. And the idea behind this is that, hey, if I have a wallet, and what is an open financial system? It's a world where I can send money to anyone, anywhere. And so we have like a chat system where you can basically add a friend, and then you can send them crypto. And this friend could be anywhere in the world. And so, that's one more aspect of this open financial system. Just send money to anyone, anywhere.
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you have any features of Toshi that you're proud of the most?
I would say, a couple of things. I would say, we were the first wallet to support collectibles, right? And collectibles is such a new thing and such a thing that's unique to crypto. And we were the first ones to go out there and say, hey, this is really going to be a thing. Let's support them in the wallet so people can see what they own. And so I love that feature. I think we're hoping to build it out even more and make it much richer. Then I love our dApp gallery. I think people love the idea that they can come into like one product and explore this world. I think those are the things that I'm most proud of right now. And I think you'll see over the next few months, we'll be shipping more and more features that we can then talk about.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how did you add support for the ERC 721 collectibles?
Sure. So for the ERC 721s, what we did was we first built a database. We said, hey, what are the main projects that are out there, right? Like there's probably 20 or 25 big collectibles projects. And so we built a database that took their smart contract addresses, and then we started to add metadata. And so we added, okay, what's the name of this project? And then can we even get a photo of each of these collectibles? And then I think one of the issues there is that the community has not decided. The ERC 721 spec is so new that the community hasn't decided how to provide metadata on a kind of in a predictable manner, right? Because every collectible is different, so people haven't been able to say, okay, this is exactly what metadata we provide, and we're actually trying to push the community in that direction. But coming back, so we have this database, and what we do now is on the back end we scan all of our users' addresses for any activity to do with those smart contracts. And so if we see that, hey, you've engaged with this smart contract that we know belongs to like crypto bots, for example, right? We will then we'll see what that transaction is, and it'll show up in your wallet. And that's how we build the integration.
Right. So maybe if I can kind of drill down on that for a second. So the difference in metadata, like we have all this disparate metadata out there. So maybe explain that a little more. So like a CryptoKitty has some metadata associated with it that allows it to generate the visual representation of that kitty, right? And then an ether bot, like you mentioned, also might have some metadata, but they don't necessarily have the same number of fields. That number of fields may represent different things. It's not like an ERC20 token where every function is there and designed to just pop it into a currency exchange. This is a little different, right?
Exactly, and it's even if you're comparing like an Etherbot and a CryptoKitty, you can probably say, hey, they're kind of similar, so maybe we could agree on at least like four like attributes that they'll share in common, and they'll both agree to do that. But what happens when an ERC 721 is a piece of music, or what happens
Right.
if it's a legal agreement, right? So I think because in any standard, you want to have it be fully like you want to cover all the edge cases, it becomes difficult to actually decide upon what the fixed attributes should be. So, but I don't think it's the end of the road. I think it just means that the community needs to have more conversations around it. And it's something we're actively pushing because the big benefit of a collectible, like, look, if I go and buy CryptoKitty today, right? It's great that I bought the CryptoKitty, but really, if I'm only engaging with it on the CryptoKitty's website, then I'm not making full use of the power of the
Right.
idea that this is a collectible on the blockchain, right? It's only truly powerful if I can go to 5 other places, whether it's a marketplace or a wallet or a third-party game, and use that same collectible in that location. But in order to start to do this, where third-party apps can easily tell you what or represent to a user what this collectible is, we need that agreement. So it's just a matter of continuing that dialogue, and maybe I'm hoping that in the next 3 to 6 months we can get to a point where it's like, hey, okay, we have a decision on this, and everyone can agree to represent a collectible in this manner.
Right. So is there a good public forum for this conversation? Can people go to like the Ethereum Improvement Proposals repository and see the dialogue around this kind of thing? Or what would you suggest if people wanted to follow along with the conversation?
Yeah, I don't think there is a good metadata specific discussion. I can give you an example of how this has happened in the past, which is that there was a need to rationalize some of the ERC 721 specs, particularly around transferring of ownership and granting authority so that an ERC 721 could be traded using a decentralized exchange, right?
Sure.
And that was a missing hole. And so a couple of months ago, there was an incredible I don't know if you were at ETH Denver, but right, it was like just a gathering of everyone who's building for this space, as well as a bunch of I think 1,200 or 1,300 hackers that got together. And what happened was we had this informal meeting of a bunch of ERC 721 creators and wallet providers, and we just got together and managed to kind of push the consensus forward on how we could make those improvements. And within 2 to 3 weeks of that happening, we then had an upgraded ERC 721 proposal that everyone was pretty happy with. And so that's kind of how that happened. Hopefully, we're going to have a meeting of wallet makers in the next month in May, and then hopefully we can then put up kind of what the proposal is into an ERC and take it forward from there. So I think stay tuned. That's going to be out there pretty shortly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's really exciting about this space is you can watch the technology sort of codify in real time and watch everything sort of become what it's going to be in the future.
Absolutely, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's like the seminal days of the internet, right? Where really there's only these half-baked standards and protocols, and then someone just says, "Hey, I'm impatient. I'm just going to go and build something on whatever protocol is available," and then that somehow becomes the standard. But then people get together and say, "Okay, we need to improve this somehow." So then you have a consensus-based mechanism for driving that forward. But it's pretty crazy, but it's crazy in an awesome way.
Yeah, it's crazy in the sense that you never know what's going to actually win. Can you tell me a little bit about how you're actually, integrating your browser with Ethereum?
Sure, absolutely. So Toshi is what we call a light client, right? Or zero client actually, where we're not running a node on your phone because that would just burn your battery and your space, right? So it's just not practical to do that right now with the current state of affairs. And so what we do is we have a web browser. The browser relies on it's a standard WebKit OS browser, so it works just like Chrome would. And then what we do is we inject Web3, and we will present a transaction for the user to sign because the private key is stored on mobile, right, on your phone. And so you sign a transaction as a user, and then Toshi will transmit it to our backend where we're running like a stack of nodes. And we will then, that's how your transaction makes it onto the actual blockchain.
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you all host your own nodes or do you use a different provider?
We host our own nodes, but I can see that potentially changing where we have a series of like two things, right? Like where we have our own nodes, but we also have backup nodes that are
Sure.
hosted by a third party, like say Infura, and then also we'd like to give users the ability to point at whatever node that they would like to point to in the future. When we first built Toshi, we built it for a very simple use case, which was don't overwhelm people that are new to crypto. And so, but now we're beginning to layer on some more power user features like, custom nodes, for example, that some of our more advanced users and developers want.
So can you tell me about your involvement with the project?
Sure. So I'm the product lead, and so I have to wear many hats. I'm generally responsible for product strategy, developer relations, and then finally just the product itself. So I generally see my role in two parts, right? The first is just stay on top of all of the great innovation happening because things are changing so quickly, right? And so whether it's payment channels or decentralized exchanges or stable coins or identity, you name it, whatever is coming out of the latest, ERC proposals, figure out what it is. And then the second part of my job is let's convert that into a great user experience, right? So can we actually ship a really simple, easy to use, secure, reliable consumer interface for whatever this technology is, right? And so that's basically my role, right? Like just stay on top of what's happening and then figure out a great way to bring this to both users and developers.
Nice. So how did you get into the blockchain space originally?
Uh, that's interesting. So I'm actually relatively new to the blockchain space. I've been at Coinbase around 5 months now, and 7 months ago I was running a robo advisor in India. So like imagine a wealth front for India, and I just happened to be I was going back and forth between India and the US a lot because my wife lived here, and on one of my long like India US flights, I just happened to read the original Bitcoin white paper, and that was it, right? I was bitten by the bug, and I just went down this rabbit hole for the next week. I disappeared. My wife was really worried about me, and I was just reading about like everything in this space, and I just found it so fascinating. And it just like I said, it seemed to me like this was literally the beginnings of a new internet. It was very clear that this technology, although it's super bare bones at the current moment, you could see the potential for everything that could be built on top of it. And so, I just got really interested in the space. I got introduced to Coinbase by an investor, by a Coinbase investor, and I just loved the idea of Toshi and kind of building this platform for people to experience the blockchain. And yeah, that's how I got sucked in.
That sounds like a familiar story. Kind of, getting exposed to this, and it almost all it takes is one little taste, and you can very quickly go from zero to obsessed about decentralization and blockchain and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a mind virus.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
So, what do you think the future of Ethereum and dApps and cryptocurrency and collectibles? What all I know that's a lot. That's a few different things, but if you
Yeah.
kind of get the spirit of the question, where do you see all this going?
Yeah, sure. There's a few different themes, right? Obviously, because we're talking about different things. I think, firstly, very simply, the one that comes immediately to mind is look, there's a $2 or $3 trillion pot if you add up the market cap of like the existing platform businesses, right? So Silicon Valley today, right? So whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, Google, Uber, Airbnb, and they have decentralized competition that is being built right now, and I strongly feel like the first iterations that are launching right now are very rough around the edges, but I think they have a fundamental structural advantage, right? So a replacement for Twitter just launched last week called Peepeth. I don't know if you've seen it. It's really cool.
I saw that come up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome, right? And so and you can't censor that, right? Like unlike a lot of social media today, that people grumble about the censorship and the control and the algorithms that you don't know that are very opaque and you don't know about. And then there's competitors coming out for Google AdWords. There's competitors coming out for Airbnb, and they're very rough around the edges. But I do believe that they will come one day and eat like the existing like Silicon Valley giants lunch, right? So I think that's one big thing, right? And that's just a direct replacement for today's tech companies. Then secondly, I think financial services is another big field. I think when it comes to your identity, your credit scores, being able to invest in assets, being able to raise money for your company, being able to use decentralized exchanges, right? Insurance. all of these existing traditional financial services businesses, I think there's analogs being built on the blockchain right now that are going to be very, very competitive and once again, a fundamental structural advantage that means in 5 years, they will be better than what could be provided today. And then what else? I think, collectibles are great. I alluded earlier to the idea that, look, right now you buy a collectible on a website, but I think it's going to be more and more integrated with a much more immersive experience, whether that's inside a game or inside an AR or a VR experience or somewhere in real life, right? So I think that's what's really exciting about collectibles. I think payment channels will improve scalability massively, right? So we're seeing the first prototypes come out now, and they just make like all of the issues that we have with user experience right now with dApps, right? Where you go to buy something and then you wait for like a minute, and the transaction may or may not go through. It may take 5 minutes. The transaction cost might be 2 cents, or it might be $2, or it might be $10 if the exchange is really, or if the network is really congested. And so I think payment channels will hugely like alleviate some of those congestion issues and help with scaling. I think stable coins, when I think of like, I'm from India, right, where, a developing market. I've traveled around Africa where, and then, anecdotally, the people at Coinbase, when they travel to emerging markets, they try and get a sense of how people are responding to crypto. And I think, there's some really cool things about crypto, which, it's digital, you own it, it's trustless. But then one downside, if you're going to someone who's a really new user, is that they're highly volatile, right? And so if there was a way to give them all the benefits of crypto without volatility, that would be awesome. And so stablecoins, I think, are big, can really solve that use case where you can go to someone, whether it's, it could be in Nigeria, it could be in somewhere in South America, in India, and you could say, hey, here's something that has all the awesome features. It's, you control your money. You can send it to anyone in the world. And hey, it behaves very similarly to a currency you already know and trust. And maybe that's the US dollar, maybe it's your local fiat, but it's pegged to that, so you know what to expect when you hold it. So I think that's another thing that could be really powerful. So yeah, I mean, those are some of the interesting things, I think.
Yeah, very cool. So that's a kind of a grand projection over and maybe an indefinite timeline, right? So do you have any thoughts about where we might be with the space, maybe in terms of like dApps and things like that within inside of a year?
Yeah, everything that I've talked about, I think we're going to see like an evolution in this year. You're going to see the first prototypes. In fact, I would say there isn't anything I've mentioned that you're not going to see a prototype for in the second quarter of 2018, right? Whether it's a replacement for any of these platform businesses, they're all either launched or being launched this quarter, right? When it comes to financial services, we're about to feature, at least there's 2 or 3 dApps that come to mind that are about to be featured on Toshi that will let you borrow on the blockchain. Wow. We're actively working on identity services. We're working on we talk to the guys that make a DAO and DAI all the time. So stablecoins are already out there. Payment channels, the prototypes are out there. So you're going to see this in 2018. I mean, what you will not see is these services operating at scale, right? What you will see is that the early adopters are using these technologies, and they're out there and they're highly usable. And I think from there it's like building it out and taking it to the rest of the world in 2019, 2020.
Right. Do you see any clear answers for operating these kinds of things at scale?
I feel like there's already, I think hopefully, look, we place, as a builder of Toshi, I place kind of an underlying and implicit trust in like the Ethereum core devs that they will be successful in their scaling efforts. And so, that's not my, it's not my core competence. It's not something I can fix. I do hope that they are successful in the underlying, infrastructural scaling. And then, I can definitely tell that payment channels will help with scaling as well. But so hopefully, when it comes to scaling, I hope that Ethereum figures it out. And if Ethereum doesn't figure it out, I think there's other competing blockchains that may bring something so architecturally different, right? And, there's talks obviously of like, blockchains like EOS and others that hopefully maybe they bring something that helps us get to a large scale.
So is there anything kind of on the roadmap for Toshi or Coinbase in 2018 that you'd like for anyone to know, or is it all pretty hush-hush?
There's a ton of stuff. I wish I could talk to you about it.
Sure.
There's a ton of stuff coming out in the next few months that we're really excited about, and that we think will just help make this a more universally available platform that will help improve the experience. And I think fundamentally so, not incrementally, but I think in big steps. I can't talk about a lot of that, but
Sure.
what I will say is that even like as much as I'm excited about like just the improvements to Toshi, I think what's as exciting is just the ton of developer interest that is happening in terms of building dApps, right? I've never seen anything like it at such an early stage, and I don't think any other blockchain has this community behind it, right? Like, for example, at ETH Denver, like so many, like over 100 projects of really interesting things being built. So what I would say is that if you just install Toshi today and you just kept paid attention to the dApps that are being built, right? And we're constantly adding. We've added a couple this week. We're adding new ones every week. If you want to know what's the latest and the greatest, just install Toshi and pay attention to the dApp, like the dApp gallery, because that's where you'll see what's being built and what's the latest cool stuff that someone has deployed and what are the potential next new Facebooks and Googles that are being built.
Right. So we'll rely on Toshi to filter out the noise and be the curator for us. Very cool. So is there a place where we can find, Toshi on social media?
Yeah, we're pretty active on Twitter. Both kind of the official account is Toshi at Toshi, and then my personal social media account is at Sid_Coelho. So SID_COELHO. So yeah, and I'm also on Twitter all the time. So
You guys have a Medium blog or anything like that?
we do. It's I don't know the exact URL. I'll tell you.
I can put a link to all these things down in the description below.
It's a blog.toshi.org.
Cool. So I have a new question that I'm throwing out there to people on the channel. It's been a hotly debated topic. So how do you spell the word dApp? Like, how do you format the letters?
Great question. So if you've seen Toshi, we use the special character D. So it's special character D uppercase and then uppercase A PP. I like that. It's just I will admit that it is challenging to type in that uppercase D. You've got to go and copy and paste it in. So I often go with capital D, capital A, and then lowercase p and p. I'm not opposed to lowercase d, uppercase A either. So I think it's still up in the air.
Yeah, there's so much inconsistency. I actually put a tweet out the other day with a poll that said, how do you spell this? And got a lot of responses. It seemed like the winner was, lowercase d, capital A, PP. But I mean, I spelled it a couple different ways. I think like my YouTube banner spells it with the special character D and things like that. So
listen, it's a decentralized world, right? Like,
that's right. It's decentralized.
Do it your way. Yeah.
That's right. I like that. Awesome. Well, Sid, is there anything else that you'd like for the people watching to know before we wrap up here?
No, we love feedback. Look, if you like the space and you're interested in the space, and I think we're all evangelists. I think at the people like today, every one of us is an evangelist, and if we aren't an evangelist today, if we're a new user today, we're gonna get bitten by the crypto bug and become evangelists tomorrow, right? Because there's a ton of people that we have to bring into the space. So what I really love is when people give us feedback, right? Like you can reach me on Toshi. I'm Sid, right? We have a chat. I'm just SID. Or so you can reach out there, or mail me, or reach out to me on Twitter. But I'm really interested in, and as a team at Toshi, we're really interested in taking crypto out to the masses. And so anytime someone has feedback for us that helps us kind of build that better experience, we're super open to it. Right? We'd love to hear what people think. So yeah, so check out Toshi. Build a dApp. We'd love to see, since there's a lot of devs watching this, build something. Just go out there and build something. There's a ton of tutorials out there. We'll be putting out our own tutorials as well. It's really easy to do that, and start experimenting. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. That was a very educational talk and quite enjoyable. I'm excited to see, what the future of Toshi is going to be in the blockchain space and the Ethereum space. Sid, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. So everyone, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more interviews about how you can build decentralized applications on the Ethereum blockchain with people like Sid. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Awesome. Bye, guys. See you.